The Supreme Court just heard arguments over the legality of President Trump's push to remove Lisa Cook from the Federal Reserve. Both conservative and liberal justices appear ready to reject the president's arguments. Joining us, law professor at Vanderbilt University and former law clerk for Justice Antonin Scalia, Brian Fitzpatrick, Slate senior writer and co-host of the Amicus podcast, Mark Joseph Stern, and professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan, Justin Wolfers. Gentlemen, thank you. All right, so Brian, talk to me about what you heard today and where you think this goes.
What I heard was, don't sell your stocks. The president is going to lose. The court seemed pretty unpersuaded by the president's arguments.
Why not?
I think it seems like the president wants it all. He wants full discretion to decide what for cause means in firing Fed governors, and he doesn't want any review of those decisions, and he says there's no remedy even if I do it wrong. And it was really the Hail Mary pass, and I don't think it landed very well.
Yeah, there was one moment, Mark, where they were talking about the recourse that Lisa Cook had to defend herself, and she hadn't been given any recourse. The claims against her, the mortgage fraud claims, that hasn't been tried. It hasn't been adjudicated. And there was an interesting answer from John Sauer regarding what she could have done. What was it?
Well, she could have, according to the Solicitor General, simply declared in the public sphere or on social media that she was innocent of these charges and that she did not commit mortgage fraud. The Solicitor General said she didn't need a hearing in court or even a meeting with the president. She should have simply put out into the ether that she was innocent. And the justices across the board did not seem persuaded at all by that argument. That said, it wasn't super clear to me exactly where a majority will land in ruling for Cook. I agree with Brian. I think they will side with Cook. Some of the justices seem to think she needed a hearing. She needed an opportunity to prove that she was innocent. Others, like Chief Justice Roberts, seem to just want to say, look, she made a mistake on a mortgage application. That's not enough to fire her. It's insufficient cause. There was real tension, even among the justices who agreed on a bottom line, about how exactly they should resolve this case. And so I think there's a chance we could get something of a splintered opinion that does leave some room open for Trump to maneuver against other Fed board members.
There was the question of where to draw the line on what is too egregious or what is behavior that could be fired for cause. And they went through a number of hypotheticals. Did you get a sense, as Mark is saying, that maybe there is some room for them to try to draw a line that Donald Trump will be able to meet with other cases?
I think that's possible, but I frankly think it's unlikely. And I actually think they would love to avoid deciding what exactly for cause means. It seemed very messy. There's a lot of different theories. The statute just says cause and nothing else. So I think it's very murky. I think there's easier ways for them to get out of this, especially on the balancing of the harms. This case is all about whether she can stay in office while the litigation proceeds. The president lost that below. The burden is with him now. He's got to show the balance of equities is in his favor. And, you know, the court kept saying, if we let you get rid of her now, the stock market's going to drop. That's bad. What's the harm in letting her stay? You've already conceded that you can't fire her for policy disagreements. So what's the big deal with letting her stay? And I don't think his lawyer had very good answers.
So that's interesting because, Justin, they did get into the stock market. They got into the economy. Not usually what you hear at the Supreme Court, getting into the external stuff in that way. But they were concerned about a decision that they would make damaging the economy. What would it mean if they were to allow Donald Trump to fire Lisa Cook?
That would mean that he could fire Lisa Cook and then presumably find similar something, maybe, depends how broad the decision is, to fire everyone else. And then, and Kavanaugh said this explicitly, then you'd get every 4 years, we just fire everyone on the Federal Reserve. And that would then politicize the whole thing. Democrats would be under pressure to appoint Democrats, Republicans to appoint Republicans. You'd start to move away from appointing experts who are thinking about what's in the public interest and instead appoint partisans who could help you maneuver monetary policy to help you get re-elected. And we'd end up probably with a rougher set of ups and downs of the business cycle and probably higher inflation.
There is still, though, consequences beyond this case. The fact that it's being argued, the fact that Donald Trump is going after Lisa Cook, going after Jerome Powell, investigating Powell. I mean, regardless, Justin, Powell is going to be out of office or out of the chair in May. He's going to probably stay on the board of governors, but he's not going to be the Fed chair. Donald Trump will be able to replace him with somebody else. Is that going to negatively affect trust in the Federal Reserve? And do you expect to see it in the stock market?
I think there's a big question here, which is what does the president do and how does the Senate respond? Which is the history of this has always been try to appoint an absolutely top tier, serious economist who people and markets trust to steer the economy through whatever lies ahead of us. If that's what he does, and that's what he did in the first term when he appointed people, then I think thumbs up. It looks like we'll be back to having a functional central bank. If he goes for an underqualified partisan or a crank or a charlatan, and he's suggested several of those actually at the end of his first term for the Federal Reserve Board, then you'd start to see confidence in the Fed undermined. Now, I think we actually have something that saves us, which is the chair doesn't make policy, it's a committee. The chair has historically had a lot of power, but that's an earned power. Leadership is something you demonstrate. You show the right arguments and you can bring the rest of the committee along. And I don't think any charlatan is going to be able to bring the other Federal Reserve Board members along. So in the short run, I'm not super concerned.
Can we talk about tariffs and the decision on tariffs? Mark, we're still waiting for it. I know they got into economics a little bit today with the Fed board stuff. Did it give you any sense at all? Maybe it's too much of a swing, but any sense at all of how they might be feeling about tariffs?
Well, I certainly sensed that the justices were attuned to the real world consequences in this case. And I think that bodes poorly for the Trump administration in the tariffs case as well. In this case, there were all of these professors and former Fed members who said this will lead us to a recession if the president can just fire these Fed board members for, any reason he articulates. Justice Amy Coney Barrett brought that up when she was trying to balance the equities, as Brian mentioned. She said, shouldn't we factor in the reality that this could lead to a recession? And I think that the justices are probably also aware of the economic impact of tariffs in the tariffs case, where similarly, there were experts who filed briefs saying, look, this is going to take a huge bite out of the economy. It's a dangerous tool to leave exclusively in the hands of a president and his own whims. And Trump's recent threats against Europe over Greenland perfectly illustrate why this is not a tool that the courts should leave to the president alone. So, it's always difficult reading tea leaves, but I do think that this is a court that wants to keep the economy safe from Trump and is willing to draw some lines in the sand to do that. We'll just have to see if it's willing to do so in both of those cases and deal Trump the kind of double defeat that could lead him to maybe retaliate against the court.
I got to get to some breaking news, but do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree that they are sensitive to the economic consequences of their decisions.
All right, Brian, really good to have you. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Mark Joseph Stern and Justin Wolfers, gentlemen, appreciate it.